Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Work-Life Wellness Series. I'm Rob, and today I'm excited to welcome back Trish. Thank you for coming back.
You brought me back.
You came back. Yeah, you came back. So we want to dive a little bit deeper into what truly means to thrive in like work, life, and health. In your teachings, I know you emphasize like a foundation of the idea that each of us has the ability to engineer our own elevated work-life experience.
Not a perfect work-life experience.
No.
Not a balanced work-life experience, but an elevated.
Elevated.
That's the key word, right?
Yeah, elevated.
You got to take the pressure off.
Yeah. Well, it's not about, chasing balance, like you said. So one of the things that your priorities are health, family, and impact through your creative expression. That was excellent. So I don't know, actually. It was funny because I was reading this. I'm like, definitely for me, family is always at the top for me, for sure. Yeah. Family, but I don't know what my other two are. I need to work on that. I'm a workaholic, so I'm bad.
That could be like one of your unpriorities.
Yeah, maybe. Definitely family is definitely at the top of my list for sure. Does food count? I like to eat.
I think that definitely could count. Yes, it's a passion for sure.
But it's funny because one of the things is before we went live, we're like, what should we call this? And you're like, you said, and then you're like, people just get in your own way. Yeah. Like in a lot of this, we want to talk about how we easily as humans, we get in our own way for this sort of stuff. So, so what we want to do is that we want to unpack and talk about the most common roadblocks that do this. And you said, and I think in your teachings, you teach us 8 different ones.
Yeah, the 8 common roadblocks. These are the roadblocks I see most often in my clients and my coaching work. Right. And that it's universal. So right. Whether you're like a CEO,
it doesn't matter,
or you're just starting out. Yeah, right. These come up again and again. So when we're with awareness, we can create change. Right. So if we talk about them, make them more open, then maybe you see 1 or 2 in yourself, and then you can make a small tweak. Yeah. Doesn't have to be transformational change. No. Right.
By the end of the series, we'll transform people.
Yeah.
Just baby steps for now.
Baby steps. Yeah.
So how do we? Maybe if we can start how do we start identifying and aligning our own priorities? Like you just asked me, what are your 3, Rob? And I'm like, how would I go about doing that? Like, do I literally just stare in the mirror for a half hour and decide when my
talk to the deepest part of your soul? I think it all comes back to at the end of the day, what really matters. Right. Right. So if you're, this sounds dark, but if you're on your deathbed.
Right.
What are you going to want to talk about? What's going to really have mattered to you? What memories are you going to hold on to? And so not trying to be dark about it, but there's a reality there is that we spend a lot of time doing things that maybe at the end of the day, they seem like they matter, but do they? Like you have to ask yourself that hard question.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think even I like the word impact. Like, how do you make an impact in what you do? And because it can come across your personal life, your work life, or whatever it may be, your relationship, whatever it is. And like for me, it's like when I was reading these, I'm like, what are the things that like I want to leave as like a legacy or an impact, and what's important to me? So, but I need to figure that out.
It won't take long. When you start just thinking about it, it surfaces pretty quick.
Interesting. So one of the things in your teachings you emphasize is engineering your days of success. So using work-life priorities. Could you explain what that concept means and why it's like important for success?
Okay. So we talked last time. Yeah. You'll have to watch episode 1.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
About agency. And so I always go back to agency, the idea that we have the ability to design our daily life experience so that we have a better sense or better feeling of fulfillment. We're inviting more moments of joy where we don't have to feel as overwhelmed. We don't have to make life as harder than it needs to be. So when you think about success, most often people come to me with their goals, right? I have this revenue goal, I have this promotional goal, I have this I want to find a partner. And these are all fantastic and great. But on a daily basis, in pursuit of those goals, what are your mini goals? And those are usually reflected in your work-life priorities. So the things that really matter. So again, it's like the little micro decisions you make every single day that add up to your ultimate experience, the overall experience.
Right.
So have the big goals, be going after them, but on a daily basis, what do you need to do to get there, but also to enjoy the process along the way?
Interesting. So you mentioned like your priorities are health, family, and impact through creative expression. How did you get to those 3? And I'm curious, like you work with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do people not put health and family as a priority? Like, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but
Yeah.
I'm like, well, shouldn't we all put health and family as a priority?
Well, and one could argue yes, because if you don't have health, I mean, right? But I think it means something different to everyone. Mm-hmm. So for me, health means like my lifespan and my health span kind of getting closer together. Where I can be doing things when I'm 70.
Right.
So when I do strength training, I'm doing it for when I'm 70.
Right.
But everyone has different reasons or priorities for your health. Maybe someone who's recently gone through cancer treatment, their health goals are quite a bit different.
That's true.
So yeah, health and family, they seem pretty standard. And for most people that they're very common and universal. And then the third one, that impact, most people I work with, because usually it's driven professionals, they want to make impact, they want to contribute, they want to have that legacy, and again, that can mean something different to everyone. And so what I ended up with landing on, and I'm privileged because I do this work all the time, is creative expression. So I find that I want my impact, yes, to make a difference, but I want it to be because I've created something in the world, because it's the creative expression of my impact that fills my cup. Right? On a daily basis, when I get to do a little writing, or I create a program that people can take and experience, that's creative expression for me.
Got it.
So if you were to say, well, you could get on social media every day and talk about stuff, and that's all your impact. You make such big impact.
Right.
But would it be fulfilling for me at the end of the day? Because it's not me actually creating.
So
think about what. Yes, you want to make impact. What does that look like? But how do you want to make it? What is the avenue that's going to bring in those moments of feeling of satisfaction, right? That I did something, I created something. And that's different for everyone.
So, and I think I asked this maybe in the first session as well, like, can they change over time? Will they change over time? And I guess not everybody's the same, but depending on the stage in life and where you're at, and, maybe you don't have a family and then you have a family, or like, does those, like that can they can shift over time?
100%.
Okay.
But and maybe I've always had, well, I think we kind of talked about this last time too. Health may look different in my 20s versus now.
For sure.
But yes, they absolutely change. And I think one of the ways, and we'll talk about this in the roadblocks, one of the ways that we get stuck in the rut, or people feeling overwhelmed or kind of burnt out, is we don't adapt to those changes. We keep the same major goals and we don't adjust our micro goals. We keep the idea of what success should be without adjusting what we think success should be in relation to the changes in our life circumstances.
Interesting.
So the more adaptable and flexible we are, the more we invite that fulfillment, satisfaction.
So once you've identified those priorities, so you got your 3, and you that's what you encourage people to have 3. I
think 3 is manageable.
Okay, yeah, like not 80, not 87.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've identified our 3. So then, how do you recommend you start aligning those in our daily actions and priorities? Like, how do you put these 3 on the board somewhere so you always look at them? Like, what do you encourage people?
Great recommendation is to write it out on a sticky note, put it on your computer, for sure. I mean, often people say write your big, hairy, audacious goals.
Right.
For sure. I think work-life priorities are more about being aligned and centered with what really brings you satisfaction, right? Because that $1 million in revenue maybe, or whatever goal it might be, that's not going to necessarily bring you the satisfaction.
Right.
But your work-life priorities, because they're core to what really matters to you, if you're making decisions based on those priorities, you're much more aligned. It feels much more aligned.
Right.
So yes, write them down, put them on sticky notes. And when you're choosing what you want to do in a day, and this takes reflection.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's the hard part. Is that no one wants to think about that stuff. Like we're thinking about 1,000 other things. But just every now and then, take a moment and take inventory of how you live your everyday life experience, and then ask, are these in alignment with my work-life priorities? And this doesn't have to be heavy. It's like, okay, so I say health is a priority for me.
Right.
But I'm eating out at McDonald's 5 days a week. Not that there's anything wrong with McDonald's. You want to sponsor?
Well, maybe 5 days a week.
Yeah, maybe. But like what I do know is we intuitively know when we're making choices that are not in alignment with what really matters to us. We intuitively know it, but we push it down because we're in pursuit of a goal, or we think we're making that choice for this reason or that reason. So the questions I'm asking people to ask themselves are hard, because to appreciate that truth, that intuition, is like, you have to acknowledge it and then do something about it.
Right. And so do you work with people one-on-one to help them get these 3 priorities, or get to these 3 priorities? Or do you prefer, like, you're like in front of a group doing it, or both? Like, what do you?
Well, I think there's a place for both.
Okay,
so like as a speaker, I'll go in to companies, right? And you have a larger audience. And so my idea is that I'm planting seeds.
Yeah, for sure.
But the one-on-one work is where you can actually help guide people through the process of looking at what are your priorities, what are your big goals and your micro goals that are going to get you there. And then most importantly, and this is why I think this episode's so important, what's going to get in your way.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue.
Yeah, you like that?
One of the roadblocks you mentioned is the all or nothing mindset.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to use quotations, all or nothing mindset. So why do you think, like, why is that such an issue, and how can like maybe small consistent actions help counter that side of it?
So the all or nothing mindset, classic case, the cookie box, right? So I'm on a healthy eating streak, and I'm going to have this one little cookie because it looks so good. And then like, well, screw it. I'm going to have the whole box. Yeah. So there's so many nuances in life. And as I think often determined professional people who are like, I'm going to get this done. I am absolutely disciplined. It's like you're all in. And it's heavy because you're like all in. And then when something shifts or you need to make an adjustment, you're like, oh, screw that. I'm all out. Like there's this mindset that it has to be one or the other, black or white, but there's so many other colors and grays and whatnot. So embracing these nuances takes the pressure away. You know, like if I don't go to the gym for a couple of days this week, doesn't mean I've written off the whole week.
Right.
Or if I didn't get this client and it didn't go well, doesn't mean I'm not meant for that path or that role. Yeah. So letting go of the idea that it has to be all or nothing. You're either on the bandwagon, you're off it. If you let that go and live in the nuances, it actually can be a little more enjoyable.
Interesting. There's a lot of us that equate productivity with self-worth. How do we shift that focus on quality of experience rather than just the achievements that we're going to get?
Oh, I like that. That's a great question. For me, and I'll speak from my own personal experience, is that if I wasn't like grinding, just going all in for so many years, then I'm not putting enough time in to warrant the time off. You do not have to earn time off.
Right.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, it is a hard one.
It's like I put my 5-6 days in, I deserve a day off. You do not have to warrant time off. It's like you don't have to warrant a treat if you want to eat a treat because you exercise for 5 days or whatever the case may be. So it's, I think work-life wellness, really the core of work-life wellness is that we need to give ourselves permission to enjoy the everyday more. And we can learn a lot from other cultures on this. It seems to be with us that, yes, if we're not working and we're not 100% productive, whatever that means, that we're not qualifying for this time where we just get to enjoy. So the question is, how do you just enjoy your time?
Right.
What does that look like? You know, like we talked last time about going for a walk without any
AirPods or anything.
Without AirPods, because for so many of us, we're listening, we're learning. If I'm in the car, I need to learn. I need to
constantly,
turn it off. Take a moment, breathe a little bit.
Interesting.
And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't mean an hour of meditation.
Right.
Right. So it's like, again, these little nuanced micro choices on every day, and asking yourself, how can I just enjoy time versus having to be productive with it?
And it's interesting because in reality, like you put your phone away for an hour, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be totally fine. But we're like, what if? Oh, what if your kid texts, or what if something happens? So you're always worried about, and I'm like, well, what did they do like 20 years ago or whenever there wasn't a phone? But it's interesting, when I was thinking about this, like quality of experience, I kind of related to even like, you know, people, their self-worth or whatever, for lack of a better word, is they got to put in 40, 50 hours of work. And I'm like, it's not about the hours you put in. It's like, what if I'm super productive in 4 hours? I don't have to, it's not about the 8 hours. It's about being very productive in that time. And then I can go enjoy the other 4 hours doing something else. And I think there's a shift in work life anyways. Like I feel like maybe it's COVID, and I hate bringing COVID up again, but maybe it's COVID that's changed that. Maybe it's okay working 4 days a week. Maybe it's okay not working 10-hour days, right? So, but it's not it's not an easy thing to do.
No, we're so mentally
correct.
Yeah, really, what's the word? Indoctrinated to think that we have to be productive.
Yeah.
So on the leadership side of this, is how are you modeling this for those who you work with?
Right.
And I think this is really important too for anyone who has a leadership role or has a team that works with them. Yeah. How are you modeling your relationship with time because how you model it is how they're going to infer it, and then think that they have to produce as well. Or
I'm going to start working 1 hour a day. That's how I'm going to model it. So.
Yeah, show people some real work-life wellness.
But you know that we do think like when as I got into business, and you know, you learn from people leaders that you're around, right? And it's about like, you need to. Well, what do you mean you didn't work Saturday? Like, you need to work Saturdays. You need to work long hours. And that's kind of like, but then as I grew as a leader, I'm like, well, I don't need to and I don't expect you to be here on a Saturday. Like, but you get from what you, like you said before, it's kind of drilled into your head. Of, this is what a work week looks like in business. You're starting a business, you got to work 7 days a week.
It's going to be hard.
Right. And it's okay if you do. If that's what you get enjoyment from, go ahead, I guess, right?
That's work-life wellness. Exactly. You're making choices for you.
Right. Interesting. I love this term. You described the first vulture is a voice that says, who am I to think I can?
Yes.
So how can people build confidence to overcome this self-doubt? Like, how do you build that confidence?
Well, just as a bit of context, the vultures come from where people truly hold themselves back. Like, we have these goals, we say we're going to do it. And I'm talking about people who are very successful, to those who are, again, just starting out in their careers.
Right.
That these 3 vultures I talk about are universal. I hear them again and again. Everyone can relate to this. So the idea of like, who am I to think I can is confidence-based, self-worth-based. Right?
For sure.
So when I teach about the vultures, and I call them vultures because they literally peck away at your potential and your possibility, is to, first of all, be aware of it. When you have these thoughts, because they're natural, we're humans, we wonder, recognize it, and then reframe it. So when your brain thinks, well, who am I to think that I can do that? Well, then you want to just stop for a moment and mentally tell yourself to stop and ask yourself this question instead. Or tell yourself this instead, is that I deserve to try. Okay? I deserve to try. That's the most important thing. I deserve to try. So that you have the ability to actually move forward.
Right.
Even though you're questioning yourself.
Interesting. Do you find, I'm going to open up a can of worms here, but do you find that, because I'm going through some training right now through like AI and consulting and all, then the session today I was listening to while I was driving, the educator was talking about that males are more confident when it comes to saying their goals. We're going to reach $1 million. We're going to do it, where the females were not as much. They didn't want to go out and put, we're going to reach $1 million in our business. We're not going to do this. Where the male, do you find it as you work with people? Do you find a difference in the male and female leader? As they're a little bit more humble and the male are more boastful. Do you find that? And I don't want to generalize, because again, not everyone's the same. But
you are opening up a can of worms.
I am.
No, but
it's a good discussion. I'm curious.
I think, and I've definitely experienced it. Yeah. There's a difference in how, generally speaking, women and men kind of go after things. But I think it's more that often we don't want to look like, as women, that we have some level of boastful arrogance, even though that's not what it is.
No.
But it can come, so we become kind of worried about that. But it's also just that I think for many women, and this is very common, you'll read about this all the time, and I definitely experienced this, where if we don't feel like we tick off all the boxes of everything that's required for a role or an opportunity, we question it. And we shouldn't. We should just go after it, right? Because you just never know. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly.
So just get out there and ask, and you don't have to tick every single box. So but there are differences in how I think the genders approach things for many reasons, which would be a whole nother kind of conversation. But
even culturally as well. I think you mentioned that about, like, I think, and I don't want to generalize, but like European culture is different, obviously, than if you're raised in, like, New York.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you got a little bit more edge, and there's different quality of, like, European growing up Italian. Yeah. It's about family. It's about taking care of family first and stuff, where sometimes it's different. So all those influence, I would assume, when you're going through this stuff in your mind, and you're having problems getting things out of your mind, or getting out of your own way, sometimes, right? Because of that. So
start to question things.
Interesting. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the second vulture. So the second vulture questions our ability. So how can someone counter this doubt and build maybe the courage, like you saying, to take that action, and maybe when they feel like maybe I'm not prepared to actually do it right now?
Or the question that maybe goes through their mind is, can I actually do this?
Can I? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I'm sure everyone's asked themselves that. You go after something, that promotion or that client or that opportunity, whatever it is.
Yeah.
and then you're given it and you're like, ooh. Well, I said I wanted that.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't know. Stomach kind of saying.
Kind of kidding. Yeah.
Can I actually do that?
Right.
Well, who are you to think you can't? Is my question, right? Who are you to think you can't do it? You can see around. There's many examples of people doing it.
Right.
So who are you? Like, the question is legitimate. Who are you to actually think you can't? What gives you the right to think you can't? And it's kind of an odd question, but so when you catch yourself saying, can I actually do that? Oh, who are you to think you can't?
Yeah.
Like, how do you judge yourself for that?
Right.
Yeah. So go after it. Give it a go.
Interesting.
What's the worst thing that can possibly happen? This is what trips up a lot of people. And I'm talking about work-life wellness or work-life leadership. It's all about making choices, again, in relation to your priorities. And so, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? That you're redirected, you're said no, you fail, you suck. I mean, there's been so many times that I've failed miserably, and it's all really great keynote material afterwards.
For sure, 100%. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, so, I completely failed in business, my first business, and I think it just happens. It's interesting because one thing I talk about it's somewhat relative is that what we do in the marketing world is like, no one's going to die on the operating table for what we do. Just make the decision, just do it. It's okay. Like, we're not, cutting a wire on a bomb.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's okay, but it's sometimes people just, they hesitate to make that decision even in day to day. And that's what I try to coach of make the decision. It's okay, right or wrong.
Yeah.
If you fail, we learn. If you succeed, great. Even better. We're going to move on and do the next one. Right. So, but it's hard. We just get in our own way.
Indecision.
Is
one of the biggest ways we get in our own way. For sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. Indecision. Make a decision.
Yeah.
You have a decision you need to make right now. Make it.
Yeah. And it's interesting in sales. I've always learned that no is a great answer to get.
Yeah.
Right. Because rather than no answer, because that's the worst.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
you feel lonely when no one answers.
That's right. All right, we're going to talk about I think it's the third and last vulture. Revolves around the fear of what others will think.
Oh, social based. So this is really important because everyone feels this,
especially in social media right now.
Oh man, yeah. It's in life in general. Like I even talk to my young kids. Yeah. From about 8 years old, they start getting a sense, right?
Yeah.
Of like. What are people thinking? So the vulture is, what will other people think? It's social based. It's normal. It's natural. We all think it. So when you think it, when it goes through your mind again, stop, and you're going to reframe it with this thought. Who will I inspire? Who will I inspire by me going out and giving it all I got, going after my dreams and visions, my micro goals in the day. Yeah. So even as showing up and being you is a way to inspire others. On a bigger scale, I remember one time I did a presentation for a group and I got some interesting feedback and I just felt really defeated and it was terrible and I cried.
I'm never doing this again.
I remember driving home from that event thinking, maybe I'm not meant for this. Maybe this isn't my path. We like to overthink and question.
Yeah, for sure.
And I really felt that way. And I took that same presentation and I did really well in the next event I went to not long after that. So had I quit because I questioned myself in a social base, then I wouldn't even probably be here having this conversation, right? So I bring this up because many years later, I had someone reach out to me who said I inspired them at that event.
Oh, interesting.
So in our minds, we might think we have failed, we've been defeated, it's not meant for us, but if you're on your work-life priority path, you just never know who you're inspiring.
Interesting. Even if you just like one person that you inspire. Yeah, which is cool.
Just showing up, doing your thing.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to show up. That's great. So, so another topic I want to talk about, one of the things you talk about is like ignoring emotional diversity is another sort of like common roadblock.
Yeah.
So why is it important to embrace sort of that full spectrum of emotions and how can that sort of foster joy or resiliency? How do you do that?
Joy, resiliency, satisfaction, work-life wellness on the everyday, which is what we're talking about. So emotional diversity, the idea here is that sometimes we get stuck in like, I'm frustrated or I'm mad or I'm overwhelmed so think of an emotion you commonly have that really kind of takes over, right? And emotional diversity asks you to question why you're feeling that way and to break it down a little more and see more, again, not an all or nothing mindset, see more shades. So maybe I'm feeling frustrated. But why am I frustrated? Oh, because I messed up and I forgot to pick up my kid from school.
Right.
Which
They can
happens.
walk.
and I'm embarrassed what people think about that. And then a couple different things happen that day, and I'm feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. But maybe it could all, when you get the emotional diversity in there, there's other feelings that you're having. So it's being able to have different versions of happy. You're not just happy, but you're satisfied, or you're feeling joyful, or you're feeling light, or you're feeling just like, I don't know, wondrous that day. There's different words, different feelings, and the same can apply to those negative emotions too. Maybe I'm feeling sad, or maybe I can call it other things as well. And so it's asking you just to become, again, aware of what you're feeling, and to not let it overtake you because you're being curious about it.
Interesting. So can you go too far the other way, where you don't care about what anybody thinks, and like, do you know what I mean? Is there an extreme one way or the other? You care too much, and then you care not at all, like, because I would think that's a detriment as well, potentially.
Yeah, that's like an emotional intelligence thing, right?
Maybe.
I think for the most people, it's definitely, I care too much what people think.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure it's possible. We've all met people who don't care at all, and we love to work with them. Super fun.
Yeah.
I think that's less common though.
Yeah, fair enough.
For the most of us, we're overwhelmed with like our complex feelings, and we try to like figure it out, and sometimes we can't figure it out.
Right. I
think that's important too. Life is complicated.
Yeah.
And sometimes we are not able to have clarity. So you can still continue to move forward and make decisions and go after your goals and dreams without 100% clarity, because clarity can hold us back sometimes.
Interesting. I read a quote, and I'm not going to get it right, but it's something around that we would care less about that stuff if you really understood how much those people that we think cared really don't think about it.
Oh, yes.
Like, and I'm totally butchered what he said. It was way better, but that idea of like, they're not probably at home thinking, oh my gosh, Trish would give the worst presentation ever today.
Yeah.
Like, but in your mind, that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Isn't that true? Yeah. We live in our own worlds where we're the starring role.
Right.
But everyone's their own starring role. So once you know that.
Yeah. So a lot of us, like, and I think I talked about this last time as well, asked, like, we'll go from like task to task without really looking at our values or our purpose. Like, we just, because we're busy during the day, and we're like, get one thing done, get another thing done. So what do you recommend to help, like, maybe people really reconnect and realign what really matters, like what truly matters, those 3 items or 4 or whatever you're thinking of there are really true at the core of what we should be focusing on?
How to connect with them?
Yes.
Create an action step for each one. Do something for each one every day.
Interesting.
And it doesn't have to be big. So,
no, right.
You need to spend some time. Here's an example that I think is very grounding. So I have the 4 kids at home. Life is busy. You're running around everywhere, like many of us. So there's the idea, the 5-minute talk. So for most of us, when we're listening to our kids, because some of them talk more than others.
Yeah.
And you might be trying to do something else, right?
Yeah. So
if you say one of your work-life priorities is family, which most likely on some level is, have that 5-minute conversation, and I get down with my 7-year-old and I actually look him in the eyes, and I'm actually want to connect. Because it's so easy to be doing 1,000 other things.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
It's about everyday micro choices. I know you hear me say it 1,000 times, but it's so important, because we don't have to have these. It doesn't have to be big and overwhelming.
Right.
Micro choices where you're going to be creating an action step towards those work-life priorities. This applies with home. This applies at work. Maybe you want to have that conversation with someone in the office you don't get to talk to very often. Put your phone away,
right,
and just have that quick 5-minute conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting, because that's one thing that, again, I was kind of taught, for lack of a better word, is like, you don't bring your phone into meetings. You don't bring your phone in when you're going to talk to a team member or whatever. So you shouldn't do it when you're talking to your kids, right? Like, because even if it's just sitting there, it's the mindset from the other person going, their phone's more important than me right now.
It's a little bit of a mind distraction, for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. So, Trisha, like, if someone's listening today and maybe you talk about these and I like the idea of sort of the micro goals, like, what's one small, like, impactful action they can take right away? Like, one of the things you said that was interesting, actually, before, as you think that through, is that you said about writing an action plan. One thing that I try to do every day is, my goal is just like, what's one thing I've done? Like, I'm going to talk about work goals. What's the one thing I did today to move that forward?
Yeah.
Just one thing. That's all it is. And it sounds silly, but guess what? If you do one a day, it's 5 things in a week that you've done. All of a sudden, if you have a team of 10, those are 50 things that you've done in a week to move towards your goal.
Yeah.
Right? So what's one thing, action that someone can take that's listening to?
Okay. So last week I mentioned drinking more water.
Yeah. Today is drinking less water. No, drinking more wine.
Yeah. There's a balance, right? Okay. So novelty. So every single day, and this is what I teach everyone in my programs, is every single day intentionally do something that is has a little novelty to it. So maybe you take a different elevator up the stairs, up the building. I know it's crazy. Maybe you talk to someone you don't normally talk to. Maybe you go for a walk in a different direction, or like it doesn't, again, micro, the smallest little thing, but it's intentional. And it adds a little variety, a spice to every day. Every now and then do something bigger, novelty-wise. But yeah, so my suggestion is, if you want to, because what we're talking about with work-life wellness is engineering an experience that's elevated. So most often people are saying, I feel overwhelmed, I feel stuck, I feel like I don't know which direction I should go, lack of focus. So those are the issues, or those are the problems. Novelty is a beautiful tool. So do something, a little novelty, and then let me know about it. Yeah. Because I love to hear your novelty ideas. I think there's been some babies born from that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I was thinking about the elevator. I think it's hilarious how we get into an elevator and then we lose our ability to communicate with people. It's so quiet in elevators. And I think it's so funny you mentioned that, because I think about that. We're on the 16th floor. So you're in an elevator with people and they just they're quiet. They're I swear we all know how to talk to each other, but we get in an elevator, stops. So that's a cool one. I was just thinking, not only get into a different elevator, imagine if you struck up a conversation with somebody in the elevator, not about weather.
Right. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's cold out there today.
Just challenge yourself with a slight novelty. Maybe you go every day to the same coffee place.
Right.
Get a different drink.
Oh, you're crazy.
I don't know. It's
you've gone too far. You've gone too far.
I know, a bit of I'm a disruptor.
Yeah, there you go, crazy. So Trish, one last thing is, for people that this is our second episode, and we'll keep doing these as people enjoy them. We will. Is that if they want to learn more, they have questions, we can't answer everything in this time. What's the best way for them to connect with you? That's one thing we didn't talk about last time is how can they connect with you? And I don't know if you're probably like me. I love talking about what I do. Yeah. So I'm always up for coffee and stuff and having those discussions for these sort of things. So how can people reach out to you? What's the best way to connect?
I would love to hear people's novelty ideas or your experiences and your questions so that we can answer them live here. Connect with me on LinkedIn. So Trisha Miltimore on LinkedIn. My website is passionigniter.ca. So you can connect with me there as well. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn.
You have a TikTok channel?
My daughter started a TikTok channel.
For you?
Yes.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
you
so
run
good.
it. You whatever you need to do. I think I have 3 posts.
Oh my gosh,
I don't do TikTok.
No.
Every now and then I'll do a morning clothing thing with my daughter.
Yeah.
Gosh, what are those called? I'm not that cool. I don't even know what it's called. A fit check.
Okay.
I do a fit check every now and then.
On TikTok?
I don't know where
You're I don't know wherever she puts it.
I'm yes, this is from Winners.
Yeah, that's right.
My boots are from, So, no, I'm sorry, I'm not on TikTok.
That's hilarious. That's great. Well, thank you I think there's some really, I liked how, we've now left some, the last 2 episodes, just some small things people can do. Back to what you said, because I know some people are listening, go, I don't know where to start. That's the biggest thing. Just small steps, do this something small and kind of build on it as you go. So I think those are really good, insightful ways to overcoming roadblocks.
Micro to macro.
I like it. So just, if people are listening, to start with small and intentional steps first. And I would say leave comments. If there's other topics you guys want us to chat about, feel free to leave some topics. I head over and connect with Trish on LinkedIn and TikTok. Check out our outfits on there. Anything else you want to leave with before we sign off?
Just make sure you get your water in every day.
Yeah.
Very important.
Love it. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next episode of Work Life Wellness Series. Thanks a lot.